Hey, how's it going? I'm Matt, and today we are talking about the Neurontube Tangie. This is an amp sim plugin from a company called Audiosingularity. The Tangie models tones from two amp heads that are made from a company that makes a lot of tangerine-colored guitar amps. The Tangie essentially has three different sections where you can dial in your tone. First, you have the pedalboard section. So the pedalboard section has four different pedals. You have a compressor, a fuzz, an overdrive, and a tremolo. Then your signal goes to the amp head, and you can choose one of the two options. After it leaves the amp head, it goes to the cabinet. Now with the cabinet, you can select which cabinet you want, what microphone you want on the cabinet, and then where you want that mic to be placed. You can also dial in room tone there, so you can get a little bit of a sense of the amp being in a space. Now for the sake of full transparency here, I have spoken with the company that makes this plugin. They did send me a copy of this to make videos with, but they did not tell me what to say about it, they did not tell me how to talk about it, and they will not be seeing this video before it comes out. These opinions are all my own. There is no, editing process that happens from the company. This is all the video that I want to make about it and how I want to talk about it. All right, so here we are in Logic, and I have the Tangie fired up, but first I want to give you a quick explainer of how I'm doing this because it is a little weird. Because the guitar is a mono signal, if I were to put the plugin on just my guitar track, we would only get the mono version of the plugin. And that's all well and good, but there are stereo features to this plugin that I want to explore. So the way that I kind of worked around this is that I am sending my guitar to a track stack in Logic, which is just kind of a summing folder or a bus that it's going to. And it's a stereo bus so that I can put the stereo version of the Tangie on that and be able to take advantage of the stereo effects and stereo options that the plugin has. So now we have the default setting for the Neurontube Tangie. The first thing we see here is the duo horror head with everything turned to about 1 o'clock. Yeah, that is the thick channel on the duo horror head here. It sounds good. It sounds cool. It sounds aggressive. Before we go any further with the plugin, I'm going to make my way through the signal flow and just check out all the little pieces along the way so we can see everything that this does. So the first thing we have here, very simple. You have your input. It's just how much of your guitar is coming into the plugin. Mine's coming in at a healthy level, so I'm going to double click and just reset it to its normal setting. So after the input, you have your gate. And what a gate does is it just says, here's a level, and any signal that comes before this level won't make it into the amp. This is helpful for things like a noisy guitar. Say you have a single coil guitar. I tried this with my Telecaster earlier, and I had to use the gate because it was super noisy, especially on higher gain settings. Also, if you have any kind of pedal or any effect going on before this that just generates a lot of background noise, it's nice to have a gate so that only when you're playing the guitar does the guitar actually go into the amp rather than feeding all of that crazy noise into the amp, and then that gets distorted and it just builds up. And as you're building on a song, that can become really distracting. Next, you have an input selector where you can switch for if you're using mono or stereo sources for this amp. Now, after all of these initial input parameters, we get to the tuner. Not every amp sim has a tuner, and I just think it's nice when they do, because if I'm just running this, I don't want to have to open another plugin or break out a tuner. I can just plug straight in and I'm ready to go. I'm going to tune real quick just to make sure that going forward, I don't sound bad. It's a functional tuner. It works the way you expect a tuner to work. I think it's nice to have a tuner in an amp sim. You don't always need it, but when you do, it's nice to have. Here we have the pedalboard section of the plugin. First thing we have is a compressor. It helps you shape your dynamics. You can use a compressor to bring your louder and quieter parts a little closer together. Next we have a fuzz, which is, some aggressive distortion. We have overdrive, which is slightly less aggressive distortion. And we have tremolo, which is just a fun modulation effect. after the pedal board, we end up here at the amp head. Now, by default, you are looking at the duo horror head, and it is switched to the thick channel. Let's see what happens if we push that gain a little bit. All right, so now I'm gonna push the tone on that. Now we're still in the thick channel, but I have the tone rolled back, the gain rolled back as well, and the volume pushed up to go for a little more of a clean tone. Now what we're going to do is just, again, listen to the default thick channel, right? And then switch right over to the same settings on the little horror channel. For lack of a better term, it sounds a little bit less thick. It does seem a little less beefy, but let's push the gain and see where it gets us. The thick channel definitely does seem to do what it says. It feels thicker. It feels like it has more body and kind of weight to it. I feel like the little horror channel could be good on, denser mixes or things where you want a guitar that's a little thinner. You don't always want a guitar that's going to take up all of that space. You want something that can kind of give some space to other elements in a mix or in a song. So for clean tones, it does seem kind of cool. Now we have moved over to the other head, this a number 1 here. So we have our gain. It feels heavy. Obviously I'm pushing the gain all the way here, but it sounds really cool. You have your mids, highs, and lows here on your 3-band EQ. Let's see if we kind of scoop the mids out, boost the highs, boost the lows a little bit. All right, now let's push the mids, pull the lows down, and push the highs a little bit. All right, so that's a little bit of the number 1 here. Then we go on to our cabinets. Now, this, I think, is where things get most exciting to me, because this is where you have a lot of choice. This is where you have a lot of ways to mix and match stuff. Now, in the stereo mode here, the way that it works is that you have 2 microphones, right? You have one that is going to your left side, you have one that is going to your right side. Now, what you can do is, first you pick which cabinet, right? So by default, they're both looking at this 4x12, but you can switch over to the 2x12. So now my left side is looking at the 2x12 cabinet, right side is looking at the 4x12. So it's as if we have this big stack. After you pick the cabinet, you then pick what microphone you want on that cabinet. So you have all of these pretty standard microphone choices and a couple non-standard microphone choices for what mic you want to put on the cabinet. After that happens, you have the choice of where you want that microphone to be. So it's kind of, where along the cone and then how far back. I assume simulating some type of proximity effect type of situation. So as you get closer, it's a little bassier. As you pull back, it's not quite as bassy. After you pick the mic position, you pick the blend of the room mic and the cabinet level. So this is how close is your microphone signal here that's right up on the cabinet, and then how loud is the room mic that is, in theory, somewhere in the room that cabinet is in. I'm going to turn one whole side off, and you're going to hear it only go to one side. Now our guitar is only to the left side, and we can dial in how we want this side of our stereo sound to be. So it's a little darker as we move closer. And it's kind of honkier as we go to the outside. So I kind of like... Let's go with a darker sound here. And then let's see what happens if we push that room mic up a lot. Now there's a long reverb decay after that sound. So let's put in a little bit there. So now we have the 57 over here. It's pulled back a little bit, no room mic. And then on the left side, we'll bring back in the AT4040, and we're closer, we have a little room mic. Okay, let's put them both on the 2x12. And then let's put them both on the 4x12. That's a huge difference. I feel like the 412 has a lot more body to it, definitely some more low end, and the 2x12 has a little bit, like they said, kind of some more punch, a little more, high mid or just mid push. And that's cool. It's punchier. It's, it's closer to you, but that 4x12 sounds good. There's a lot of pieces here that come together and add up to a final guitar tone. And I think it's really cool that feels, similar to being in a real studio where the guitar matters, the pedals matter, the amp matters, the cabinet matters, the mic matters, where that mic is placed matters, and then how much of the room tone is in there also can affect things. It's nice to have this level of control, and it sounds good. It sounds beefy and powerful, and it's like a freaking big guitar. And so, yeah, that's the cabinet section. Next, we have the wide button. And what this is going to do is kind of artificially widen out the sound, right? It's going to make it sound like it is further to the left and right. Especially if you're wearing headphones, you'll really notice this. Though it will cause the guitar to feel like it has kind of less upfront presence, it's not kind of pushing straight towards you, it can open up space in a mix where maybe a lead vocal would go, or a solo would go, or anything that you want to be in the center of your mix could have more space. But it could also thin out your guitars, so be careful with these kind of features, but they can be really cool. So here it is without. And then with it. Next, you have a mute button, so if you just wanted to mute your signal, you could mute the signal. At the end here, you have your output, so it's just how loud is your guitar after this plugin. Once it passes through all of the stuff going on here, how loud is it? So if you're going, super loud, you want to be cranking out of this amp, turn it down a bit and compensate. Or if you're doing a clean tone and it's kind of quiet, bring it up a little bit. It's just a volume knob, but it's very convenient. It's important, but it's, one of the less sexy options on here. Now I'm just going to click through a couple presets and just see what different tones this thing has. This is the Fat Trim Clean. The next one is called Fuzz Respect, and it is noisy right off the bat. Let's try Feel the Room. All right, this next one is called Little Fuzz. That's a fun one. I like that a lot. Crunchy Tangie. Yeah, that's exactly what I want from like a classic rock tone. Compressed tremolo. This one's called Tight Metal. This one's called Tight Rock. All right, so that's the Neurontube Tangie. Now, I will say, overall, I think I really like this plugin. It's a cool amp sim. It's good orange style tones. You can get a lot of aggressive tones. You can get some nice clean tones, though they tend to be a little crunchy. There's just a lot of room to dial in the sound. That's probably the biggest pro for this plugin for me, is that there's so much, like you can get nearly an infinite amount of tones out of here, right? Like you can mess with the gate, first of all, then you have your pedalboard section, then you have the 2 different amps, one of them has 2 different channels, then you go to your cabinets, and there's all the different choices with mix and matching the 2 cabinets. You can make it a mono summed version of the 2 cabinets, but you can also have that stereo version where one's to the left and one is to the right. You can pick what mic you want, you can pick where that mic is, you can pick how much of the room tone. From all of those little changes, you get your guitar tone. And I think it's really cool to have that much control in one simulation, as if it was your whole guitar rig. It really feels like it's the whole thing bundled into one. I also like that there's a tuner in there. That's always just like a nice added touch. Same with the gate. It just helps, especially with like the high gain stuff. I think it's a really good plugin. I think it can get a pretty wide variety of tones, but I think it really shines with obviously the distorted tones. I think you want like big, heavy, modern, mean, thick guitars. This plugin gets you there, and honestly, it gets you there pretty quick. And you can just get a lot of variety with the types of ways you get there. Ultimately, I think this thing's really good. I had a lot of fun with it. I really like some of the tones you can get with this plugin. All right, so I do have a few tiny little critiques of this plugin. They're mostly nitpicky, but there's some things that I think could be a little fun if they were added. The first one that comes to mind is the pedalboard. This is not a huge deal. This is not something that like breaks the plugin for me, but when I'm messing with pedals, sometimes I like to shift the order around. And having them locked into a set order, it felt a touch limit. So I think if there was an option that I could switch them around or put them in different places, or even, take the tremolo and put it in some type of like effects send that happens after the head and before the speaker, like it would be cool to be able to do. I like to put my modulation effects after any kind of distortion, and that would include from the amp, right? So like if it had some type of effects loop where you could do that, that would be cool too, but I don't know what that involves on the back end, so like maybe that's pretty difficult to do. And also the main point of this plugin is the amp, right? So like, again, nitpicky, but something that sticks out anytime I see a pedal board in a plugin is just like, I don't know, I want to mess with them. I want to rearrange them. I want to see what different ways I can get sounds out of this. And I just like a little more freedom sometimes. Another little nitpick is the one knob tone dial. I just don't like a single knob tone. I think that's great on a guitar or a bass or something, but when it's on the amp, like I want the 3-band or more EQ. I want to be able to really dial in, the tone. I want to be able to dial in the EQ the way I want it, and it feels like a oversimplified feature. But that's the thing being modeled. So like that's not really a knock on the plugin, it's more a knock on the amp, I guess. It's just something that sticks out to me, and that's just a little thing that I would want to change. Another little critique I have that is a change that I think could really elevate this plugin from where it is if you had pan knobs for each of your microphones on the cabinets. Right now, when you're in the stereo mode, they are hard left and right. And when you're in the mono mode, they're stacked in mono. And so you can blend them however you want, but if you bring the volume of one up compared to the other in the stereo mode, it kind of shifts the stereo image of the amp, and it's a little frustrating when you're trying to kind of dial in those two things together. So if you want it to be balanced, you have to make them even in volume, right? And I think it could be cool and just give you more options and more ways to kind of customize your sound here, is just if you could pan them left and right. Maybe I want to put both of them to one side, or kind of skew them a little bit one way but not all the way, or just like kind of give you any range of panning that I could do. I think it would be fun to be able to pan each of those left and right and just mess with them inside so that I'm not locked into the either full stereo or just straight up mono. That's not a huge deal. I still think this plugin sounds really great and works really great, and honestly is something I'm going to use. I have been looking for kind of a better place to get distorted guitar tones out of an amp sim. I have a clean amp sim that I really like, but I haven't had one that's been like good for that aggressive kind of big, thick, chunky guitar sound. And this one gets there quick. Some of the presets, I would probably dial them in a little bit, but like they're a good approximation of a hefty, modern, loud guitar tone. And I think they're really great. Again, it was easy to get there. I don't have to do a ton of crazy stuff, but if I want to do a lot of crazy stuff, or really, take the time to dial in little pieces of this. Move that mic ever so slightly, or switch the mic out, or add a little bit of room sound in there, or just like pull things back, or push a little overdrive into the head, or whatever. Like, it's there. And so I think this amp is really great. I think it's really cool. I think it is better than the stock Logic approximation of this company's amps. I have one of their little practice amps from Orange, and I like it a lot, but it's not a big beefy guitar, and so I can't, and I live in an apartment, so I can't get super crazy loud with it unless I go to the studio, and this way I can get like a big hefty guitar tone. I think this amp is really cool. I had a lot of fun with it. I would recommend this plugin, but I would also very strongly recommend trying the free demo before buying anything. I think any company that offers a demo, try the demo first. Don't take my word for it 100%. Try it for yourself. Make sure it works for the kind of music you do. They do charge $79 for this. Again, they sent me a free copy so that I could review it. I do think it's a fair price for what it is. I think it sounds really great. I would recommend trying it. Try the demo, see if it works for you, and if it does, pick it up. So yeah, that is the Neurontube Tangie from Audiosingularity. And if you watched this far, thank you. I really do appreciate it. If you don't mind doing the whole like and subscribe thing, it really helps the channel. It really helps me. I would really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.